What is up, y'all? We are here for our weekly anchor message where we're getting our spiritual lessons and assignments for the week. Last night we had our energy oracle forecast for the week. We talked about the general energy of the week ahead, the Secret Teachings of Jesus episode of Saturday night, kismetly aligned perfectly with this week's portion of the Torah / Zohar commentary on the Torah, which is always exciting and fun and whimsical when it happens and super magical, but also like the natural order of things. Like that's how it's supposed to work, right? So that was really cool. So I highly suggest going and listening or watching this week's Secret Teachings of Jesus video. It is from the Gospel of Mary, and the portion is Mary comforts the other disciples. So this one was very helpful, especially for the times that we find ourselves in currently. Fun housekeeping news, guys. Last night, I took the night off from work and I recorded the first of the series of videos for 2026 prediction series. Yay! So that'll take a few days to film, and over the course of a couple of weeks, I'll probably have to do it a lot of my days off. So, but that'll be coming soon. So very, very exciting. I'll keep you guys updated. But so far, I mean, it's the first video out was our yearly overview, and it was very poignant and very specific, very honed in on the themes of the year, how they will affect us, and what we will have to do to combat the resistance to overcome. So that was a very helpful start to looking at the year to come. So I'm excited. All right, well, let's get into tonight's reading. So from the Wild Unknown Archetypes, we have the comic. Underneath the poet, and followed by the poet. And we have the box. Underneath comic, we've got the feminine King of Cups. And as a reminder, in the Mystical Moments Tarot, there's a traditional feminine queen, there's a traditional masculine king, and then there is an extra card. The final card of the suit is the feminine king, okay? And generally, I like to think of the feminine king as being like, if you think of the queen as the fully mastered feminine aspects of the element that the suit is tied to, the king is the fully realized and self-mastered masculine aspects of the element that the suit is tied to. And then the feminine king is like you have mastered both, and you've been able to balance and integrate and embody those, right? So it's the embodiment of the fullness and the wholeness and the completion to some degree, right? We're always a work in progress. None of us are totally perfect and have it all figured out. But, I think we do get to the culmination of levels, right? Before we graduate and go into the bottom of the next level, right? So this is a sign of, I think, devotion and discipline in an area of study and healing and personal development that is becoming a way that we're resourced now to cope and deal and show up proactively, right? Even better than coping and dealing with, we can handle things and be resilient and show up balanced and emotionally sober with clarity and clear judgment. So love that. We'll circle back more on that. Underneath the poet, we have the lovers. Love that. And underneath the box, we have Ace of Pentacles. So, let's stop right here, and I'm going to let you guys listen to the audio real quick, and then we'll come right back, and you can look at the spread while you're listening. Although things feel very dark and uncertain, this moment is naught but the passing of clouds. The light hasn't gone anywhere. The light is eternal and unwavering. As long as we can hold on to that awareness, we will be able to feel the warmth of the light of hope even amidst the storms. Our ability to remain at rest and at peace within allows us to maintain clarity within confusing and overwhelming situations. Laughter is a spiritual tool that provides protection. Literally, the vibration of joy and laughter establishes a strong connection to the protection and blessing of the comfort of the Creator. This is because the Shekinah, God's spirit and feminine aspect, can only draw near to that which bears affinity with God's spirit. Our connection to God's spirit becomes severed when we grow dark, becoming negative and reactive from a negative consciousness. The woman of valor from the Proverbs, quote, laughs at the days to come because she knows the power of trust, surrendering, and letting go. She's not flippant. She's not bypassing, nor avoiding, nor in denial. She's intentionally strengthening the protective light that surrounds her household. Our ability to maintain our joy through sorrows is a choice, a constant choice to look for the beauty and the poetry of life as the catalyst to the awakening and unfolding of the light of the soul. Something beautiful is being born as a result of facing the struggles of our generation and healing the collective consciousness. Sometimes pressure and limitation create circumstances ripe for ingenuity and creativity. Pressure leads to evolution. Comfort leads to stagnation. Many times it has been when I have had the least materials, tools, and resources that I've done the most creative things. Many times this element of challenge makes it all the more enticing, as any competition or game or puzzle is heightened by the player's disadvantages. This is an ideal time for planting seeds. Don't let circumstances fool you. There is no better time than now. It's supposed to be just like this. So get started. No more holding back. All right, so the comic. The comic is this archetypal consciousness that allows us to maintain our lightness and joy through life, even amidst life's challenges, right? I think that for me, my humor has been maybe in many times, like in many cases, a defense mechanism, but it's also really helped me get through some hard times in life because I've always been able to find something funny or humorous about a situation, even in the most bleak and sorrowful and tragic times, right? So even in times of grief, like when someone dies at a wake, right? There's always a moment where you've just been grieving so heavily and everything is just so raw and so tender and just everything is just boiling and it's all mixed together. And when somebody finally cracks a joke, it just feels like such a release of pressure and such a relief when you get to let that laughter through. It's such a healing moment, right? And so sometimes we can feel guilty about laughing or like, is it appropriate or, it's a bad time, but really laughter is a soothing balm, when done with respect and reverence, right? We know that there's a difference between something being really distasteful or disrespectful versus something that is, a purely funny moment, it's like those comedians with the clean humor, it's kind of like that. It's like, the situation, for instance, it might feel like one person might look at someone cracking a joke at a wake and think, oh, this is no time to make jokes. This is not a laughing matter. People are grieving, but at the same time, there might be people there that needed that moment and it lifted their spirit and maybe reminded them of a moment that they shared with that loved one that has passed, right? And so I know from experience, I've been, in those exact situations where a moment of laughter is deeply needed and deeply soothing in a moment like that. So, just having the discernment to be able to read the room, read the situation. But, even if only to yourself, in life, as you are going through the world, there's so much darkness, so much tragedy that even, it's like if you're a person who's sensitive and care and you feel empathy for others, we can get to a place where we almost feel like insensitive for having a good time and showing the world that we're having, that goodness is happening too. It's like we don't want to rub it in, but at the same time, it's like we can't let that part of ourselves dwindle because the world needs the joy, right? What if we didn't have any comedians in the world right now? That'd be horrible. We need the comedians. We need people to keep us laughing. And, part of being spiritual and part of gaining wisdom and insight is learning how to maintain a paradox. And so in life, we have to be able to build our joy from our core. And joy is something that perpetuates, whether you're happy or not, perpetuates through the circumstances, regardless of the outer circumstances, right? Happiness is happenstance. It's dependent. It's tied to the circumstances, right? It's circumstantial. It's not permeating from within. It's not eternal. And so joy, though, is something that abides in you, and you cultivate that joy, and you can have that joy even through sadness and amidst that sadness. And that joy actually keeps us young. It keeps us light. It keeps us fun. It keeps us attractive, but it also keeps us safe. The Spirit of God, the feminine essence of God, is called the Shekinah. And this spirit, this force, is the part of God that we experience and feel comforted by when we feel that God has provided something for us or blessed us in some way. And it's funny because it's like everything that we have and everything that's happened to us has been, God's blessing, because God is within everything and nothing is without God, right? Nothing is independent of God. Everything, God is like omnipresent. It's the God is the essence of the light in the subparticles, right? It's the permeating force and consciousness and life force and animating force and everything, right? So this is eternal, right? And so when we're connecting to that protection and that blessing, but I think many times, when we're feeling exposed and vulnerable, it's like we want to connect to that protection that God's, we want to feel like God's protecting us. We want to feel like God's providing for us, right? So when we want to feel that way, and we recognize it when we feel it, right? We feel that comfort and something comes through and a miracle happens, right? That is the feminine spirit of God, the Shekinah, right? The Holy Spirit. And so that presence cannot be around us if we don't emanate an affinity with that presence. It can't go into dark places. It can't go into misery and despair. And it can maybe go into where there is grief, but it depends on the consciousness of the grief, right? Is there lightness within the grief? Is it total darkness, total despair, right? When you are grieving and you can still feel the presence of the Creator, and that this is life's, process is not on our terms, and you can, in certain circumstances, I think there's sometimes when we lose people, the conditions are more graceful than others, right? Sometimes they're very tragic. And so there's different types of grief we can be in, right? Or being fearful, right? People are fearful right now because they don't know what's going to happen with their health insurance. They don't know what's going to happen with their food stamps. And so we are, faced with some very dark and uncertain times in this moment. And it actually almost works against us to lose hope and to feel the despair and to go into that fear. Because what happens is the Spirit of God is a vibration. It's a powerful force, right? And it's not embodied by like a person, right? It's energy. And so in order to attract that energy, we have to activate the law of attraction. We have to bear affinity with that energy in order to come close to it. We have to resonate with it, right? And when we're resonating with it, we are in that bosom of protection. There's that bubble of light around us that keeps us provided for and protected. But if we fall out of affinity with the light of the Creator, with that Spirit of God, then we cut ourselves off from that connection. It's like we cut the umbilical cord and we sever that connection, and then we're exposed to the chaos again. And so in order to attract the Spirit and to be able to resonate with the Spirit, it's not like the Spirit is making judgment calls like, oh, I don't like this, I'm not coming over there kind of thing. It's a matter of resonance. Think of dialing into a radio station, right? You have to find the frequency. Same situation. And so lightness and joy, appreciation, laughter, especially laughter, softness, mercy, compassion, those feelings, those vibrations, those open us up to receiving the light because we are in affinity. We are bearing affinity with the light of the Creator. And so think of yourself as like a container, like a vase or like a vessel with a lid. Pretend you have a lid. And so the light is eternal and it's unfluctuating and it's perpetual. It's like a faucet that's always on, right? The light is always on. It's always permeating the cosmos. We either shut ourselves off or open ourselves up to receive it. And so when we become fearful and we become like desperate and we fall into despair and we start becoming reactive and taking action from a place of fear, or even like say it's not fear and it's not feelings of insecurity and feelings of like financial trauma and physical vulnerability, right? In these cases, say you're getting worked up and you're angry and you're frustrated and you're mad, and then you're taking action from anger, right? You're planting seeds with chaos in them, and at that moment, you don't bear affinity with the light of the Shekinah. The Shekinah is not reactive. The Shekinah, the God, is the cause of everything. It's unwavering. It's unaffected, right? So when we become affected and we start reacting from that emotionally affected state, then it cuts us off from that. It severs our connection, right? And then it severs that provision, right? So the best thing that we can do is nurture those fruits of the Spirit within us and cultivate that inner peace, that God's rest and peace within. Cultivate joy that can be maintained in times of darkness and uncertainty, right? We're cultivating gratitude and appreciation and those vibrations that keep us in the presence of God's mercy and God's love and God's provision. Remember, God is always giving, God is always there, God is always present, but whether or not we're the ones that change and fluctuate. And so we have to attune ourselves to the frequency in order to connect with it. So one deep wisdom secret from Kabbalah, it teaches that laughter helps cancel judgment. So if you're in kind of a sticky situation, it can be actually very helpful to you to laugh about some things and get the laughter going and get the lightheartedness going, because it can shift the energy and open up the gateway for miracles and assistance to come through. Not only are we saying that, yes, this helps us be resilient in life and get through dark times, but it also literally is a spiritual technology that we can use to help keep ourselves safe and fruitful and abundant. I have learned so much from watching, keeping up with content creators or people just reporting from Gaza and watching how they have handled this situation over there, and how they have the people who have thrived and survived and the people who have struggled, more so, or it's been a heavier kind of toil. I mean, it's been impossible for all of them, but there's a difference between some of them, the way that their experience is going. And I've watched people who somehow are able to still find ways to try to make things fun for the children. For instance, there are people who've been dragging around through displacement after displacement after displacement, being bombed and all these bombing raids, and they've been able to keep up with like their mascot costumes and clown costumes, and they've been able to throw these like parties for the children. And bearing in mind, some of these children were born into this war or were infants when it started and have known nothing else but absolute violence and destruction. And yet the children still have that spirit of innocence within them, where once things start becoming fun, they can lose themselves in the fun for the moment. And it's so touching. But one thing that I find very interesting about the people who are the entertainers, like they're getting by and they're able to sort of like, it's like things just keep opening up for them, and they keep making it and they keep going. And there's one woman I follow, her name is Rosie in Gaza, and she's just this single woman who was like traveling there and got stuck in the country. I think she's from Kuwait. And so she's, not in traditional hijab or the traditional dress or anything. And so she's been by herself in this genocide, essentially surviving a war, kind of as a single woman who's traveling who's in another country that's not her home country, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like I can't imagine being me. And she's been able to create relationships with people who might initially have avoided her because of her not being in maybe traditional dress, but she's been able to be really accepted and taken in as like family with people because she is lighthearted, she's happy, she's joyous, she's giving. Every day, nearly, she hosts like a charity event where she raises money from people online, and then she films her whatever she's done. So she's like, one time she bought like a few 100 pounds of flour and got a group together to make all this bread that they went and like passed out to everybody. Like sometimes she'll like get like feminine hygiene products and get supplies and take them and pass them out. Sometimes she throws parties for the kids and make sure they have snacks and stuff to eat while they're there. And so she does all of this for wherever she's at, the villages or the neighborhoods or the communities or wherever she ends up, the people around her benefit from it. And because of this, it's like she's been provided for. People have taken her in and helped her find shelter. And it's like the universe, as we give and as we continue to share light and joy, the universe continues to make sure we're taken care of. There's a young boy, he's like 15. His name's Ahmed. And he has started like a charitable organization amidst all of this, like amidst trying to survive for your life and being on the run. He has started a charitable organization, and he too is like collecting collections for helping others and helping other people that are going through things and helping other people in his like encampments and things. And they're doing it in a way where they're able to pull off like helping hundreds of people at a time. And so it's so amazing and so inspiring to see the way that God moves through these vessels when they are able to connect with enough hope and enough joy to separate themselves from the terror and the fear and insecurity and uncertainty, and just instead focus themselves on creation and helping and joy and giving joy to others. And in turn, they have been taken care of. Both of those people that I just mentioned, Rosie and Ahmed, went back to North Gaza to find their apartments intact. Not like their building was okay, like they're broken and not perfect, but livable. They both went back to livable places, and not everybody had that good fortune. And so I attributed it, stuttering, 100% to the fact that they are putting themselves out of their comfort zone, obviously already, but even in the most uncomfortable situation, in the darkest situation, they have forced light into that, and they have made themselves a beacon and a vessel of sharing, right? Even in times where it's life or death and survival, they have chosen to be beacons of sharing. And because of that, they are revealing miracles, and I think that they recognize that, they see that. So we have the comic here, and we have the King of Cups. And so the feminine King of Cups, like we were saying, has come to a level of self-mastery in both the masculine aspects of emotion and the feminine aspects of emotion, our inner world and the way that we express that. And so to me, these two cards are saying, like, we are, it's up to us to be grounded and resourced and channel that light through and make the choice, even in the midst of all of this darkness and uncertainty, to hold that peace within, to maintain that joy, to hold on to that joy, even in times of sorrow, and to try to have a sense of humor in life, through life, with life. And I think that helps us be more resilient and more adaptable to situations. I think it can change the energy of a situation, and it can really change your mindset around. The poet is the witness to life, right? The poet can express things that are so universal by sharing their own personal view and experience of this. It's like the more personal a poet is, the more universal, like, people relate to their work. But it's funny, because the more universal a poet tries to be, the less people relate to the work, and the worse the poetry is. It's like it doesn't have a real life to it. And so the talent of the poet is that they can bear witness to life and find the beauty in it, and the irony and the symbolism and the sorrows and the depths, and they can create something beautiful out of that and express what so many feel by expressing their true heart. It's like they are mirroring to others what they feel. And so it's the voice, it's the great voice on behalf of the whole, singing the song of human history, right? Singing the myth of all of our highs and lows, our victories and our failures, our suffering and our joy, all of it. So the poet puts it into words and puts it into verses and tells that story again and again and again, in the kind of truth that can only be told kind of from the side. Like, you can't just come out and say some things, you know. It's like they don't just flat out say certain things. It doesn't quite give it enough breadth and depth, right? It needs to have more weight, more kavod. And so sometimes by speaking about something in a way that is poetic and symbolic, you can convey more. You can convey more depth, more weight, more emotion. By using a symbol or an archetype, sometimes the idea can express multiple truths at once that can't be conveyed by just saying something in a mundane, straightforward way sometimes. So the poet is here with the Lovers. And I think that this is about this is one of those things where this week we're really being called in the midst of the intensity to decide within ourselves, okay, we need to protect our sense of humor and maintain and cultivate that joy in life. And it's going to be required because this self-mastery of the emotions, it's like we can feel our emotions and we're not running from them, but we're also grounded amidst the storm. And so we can, like the emotions, we're feeling them, but they're not controlling our actions. We're not becoming reactive. We can be emotionally sober and accept and be comfortable with our feelings and process them and digest them, and express them without letting them control our actions and choices. We can still say, okay, I feel this way, but I can take a step back and try to detach enough to observe and choose with logic and reason also, with a bit of my intuition, right? And not just be controlled or emotionally driven, right? But and two, as things are uncertain, we don't need to be making choices from a panicked state, because that again is like sowing seeds of chaos. So it's like being that anchor, that rock in the hard times for others too. It's like if you're the person that's bringing the light and bringing, a sense of peace into spaces that are full of people who don't know what to think and are confused and overwhelmed and are worried, your inner peace can actually shift the energy in the space that you're in. So for those of us who are here and awakened enough to be here watching something like this, it's up to us to be this rock for others, trying to spread a little mirth, trying to be the person who can maintain that core and that joy even through the storms of life. And it's like if we can choose to remember that the presence of God is with us, even in the midst of storms, even when it's dark, we know we can feel the warmth of the sun right behind those clouds, and that's what it is to be face to face with God. It's like, that God is still with you in the situation, no matter what the appearance might be. And that prevents us from falling into despair and just losing all of our power and spilling out all of our light, right? So again, it's like we have to constantly make a choice to see the beauty in life. Even when it's like the bloom and the thorns, we have to accept both, and life gives us pain and it gives us beauty. It gives us highs and it gives us lows. And I think that we have to learn to see that there are things to appreciate about it all. And all of it offers some level of, you can draw value from any of it if you choose to see through a certain lens of consciousness. And so the Lovers is about choice, and it's about just that. It's about, are we making choices from the heart? Are we being guided from our higher consciousness, our most authentic self? Are we, or are we being guided by our fear and our limiting beliefs and controlled by that? Like, are we controlled by our fear? Do we have faith in our fear? Are we serving the fear? Or are we believing in the light and believing in what our soul is lit up by and what our heart is lit up by? And, are we making choices from our deepest authenticity and our true values? Or are we feeling pushed into making a choice because it feels like that's what we have to do, or there's no other choice, or it's our duty to do this, or I feel guilty, what if I don't? Like, we can't make choices from that anymore, because we are creating a new reality. And this year, our creations will be evident very quickly. It's going to be a very quick manifestation process. And so we want to be planting seeds of fruits that we actually want to harvest, right? And so we need to take our time, and it's a constant choice to make, to stay in the right mindset and to stay in the right consciousness and to be present enough to weigh our choices and to consider them before we just react, right? And ask, okay, where is this coming from? Why am I choosing this? Or why am I not choosing this? But this is choices being made from the heart and being led from the guidance of the Holy Spirit. And maybe it means that like a hot lover is going to write you a wonderful poem. Let's hope that means that too. All right. And then the box with the Ace of Pentacles, I feel like the box is like the certain amount of restriction and confinement and limitation. So in the first supernal energies, there's the primal point, the primordial point, which is God in God's most abstract form, where it's all one thing, it's all the light, and it's everything's included in that light. And then the next two energies, these are like the root forces of the universe, of all of existence. We have the supernal masculine, which is absolute, unadulterated, raw potential, absolute dynamism, explosive, right? Total chaos. It has no form, no direction, no shape. It is just wild energy. Think about unbridled like horniness, right? With nowhere to put this energy, right? That is the pure masculine energy without the feminine. The supernal feminine energy is restriction. It is boundary. It is discipline. It is severity. It is quiet. And look at this box, right? It captures that spark, and it gives it shape, and it gives it form, and it gives it limitations and boundaries, right? Discipline. But that takes that potential and it creates something with it. It gives it form, right? Through that discipline, through that focus, through the restriction, through the limitation, you give something form. And so right now we feel that this time is restrictive, and we feel confined, and we feel stuck, and we feel like we don't have the resources that we want, and we feel ill prepared, and we feel all these things. But the thing is that's punk rock, baby. That's where the mother of invention is necessity. And so some of the most creative things that I've ever made or done have been in times where I didn't have the right gear. I didn't have the resources. In fact, I grew up in a broke household. We didn't have money to just go out and like buy whatever. We didn't get an allowance, nothing like that. And so if I wanted jewelry, I couldn't go buy jewelry. I made jewelry. I made jewelry for myself. And I was like grunge queen, and I had all of the coolest, unique jewelry, one-of-a-kind things that you couldn't just go buy in Hot Topic, right? And I'm still that person to this day. All of my whole jewelry collection is like things that I've made, that I've pieced together, that I've curated and upcycled and repurposed and made from scratch. But it's like when you have less to work with, you can get really creative and produce. Like if I want to write and I have like overwhelm, and it makes me like the thought of sitting down and just writing out blog ideas, like in the past, it used to be daunting or overwhelming to me. Or even just sitting down to write for a writing project with endless page space, like that was too daunting. But if I started writing notes on a Post-it, I would fill up the Post-it, and then I'd fill up the back of the Post-it, and then I'd keep writing on Post-its. It's like with the little tiny space that I have, there was like not as much pressure to come up with a lot to say. So I was trying to say things in a condensed way. And then because of that, it's like more flowed through it, right? When I had less space to work with, more came out. Same with like supplies and resources and tools. There were times when I've filmed like stop motion animations, but I didn't have like real lighting or any grip gear to manipulate the lighting. So I would use like household products like aluminum foil to black out the windows, and I would just build tripods and light stands and clamp things and makeshift it, right? I'm still doing that. My phone right now that I'm filming on is on a stack of like journals and notebooks on the back of my couch, propped up against the window. I have tripods, I have gear, but you know what? Sometimes this is the best solution. It's the most efficient, right? So right now you may think, oh, I'm not prepared. Oh, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. If this doesn't seem like the right time to do this. Oh, I wish I was further along. Right now, everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. And this is the time. Don't wait. This is the time to plant seeds. The Celtic time to plant seeds is fall. There are so many astrological cycles restarting. We have like 5 major planets that are in retrograde through the end of the year that are causing us to go back and reconsider because we're about to start this huge cycle. So we are planting seeds now, right? This looks like the Ace of Pentacles that got planted, a seed of light that's going to grow into something huge. It has limitless potential, right? So we need to nurture those seeds with faith, a little grit, choosing certainty. Even when we feel afraid, even when we feel insecure, we can still choose the consciousness of certainty. You can say, you know what, Creator, I am terrified right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to work out. I feel confused. But you know what? I'm choosing to focus on the fact and know that you are with me, that you can move through the situation, that you have a plan in play. If I don't micromanage myself into a corner, and I can allow and let go and allow you to move through the situation. Please give me the strength to know when to act and when to hold, right? But involve the Creator, but say it out loud. But you can choose to focus on certainty, right? That's the grace. It's like we can cut ourselves off from our connection in 1 second with a fall of grace, with the fall of our consciousness. But then we can mend it right back in an instant, right? Just with a shift of our mindset. A shift of the choice, even of what you're voting for your mindset to be. You can just be willing for God to change your perspective, and that's enough to let the light in, right? So this is a wonderful time to plant seeds. Look at your restriction in a different way, and don't think of it as a disadvantage that's doing anything but making you the underdog that the upper realms are rooting for, right? When we're watching a movie, like remember Rudy? Like it was like a 90s movie about this like underdog guy who got into Notre Dame, like his whole family, like it's all they ever wanted was him to go to Notre Dame. And it was Sean Astin. And so he wasn't like a big football macho player. He was just like this little dude who made the team through grit and determination, right? And it's like even in script writing, they teach you if you give your character an easy time, nobody gives a shit, right? People care about characters who are run through the ringer, who experience diversity, or what is that the right word? Not diversity, adversity, diversity. They experience adversity, right? They have to overcome. And so when we overcome a challenge, it reveals even more light. Which goes back to the portion of the week. This week is Lecha or Lechacha, which is Abraham, when God called out to Abraham. Abraham was the first spiritual teacher. And Abraham came from a very negative place and a very negative surrounding with negative people. And God spoke to Abraham and said, I'm going to call you away from this place. I need you to leave here and I'm going to take you to somewhere new. Didn't give him a destination, didn't give him coordinates, didn't give him an address, didn't give him a plan, just said, you need to leave here, I'll tell you where to go. So Abraham had to leave the comfort of everything he knew, the status quo, his familiarity, leave the village, right? The indoctrination that was given to him by his father, right? We know Abraham had to leave his father's house. He had to leave the old consciousness behind in order to reveal new light, new wisdom, the light that was supposed to be channeled through him, right? And then Abraham became the father of many nations and was the father of the Abrahamic religions, right? And it was the first man or first person to teach that there was one God rather than a polytheistic deity. We have a monotheistic deity, which is one God versus many gods, right? So that required faith and stepping out in uncertainty with no answers, no specifics, just I will tell you where to go as you need to know. This journey is going to take you to a new place, a new level, but it's not a place that exactly we can name and say that this is where we're going to end up, right? We have to be able to go on that journey of inward self-discovery and outward facing fears and facing inward fears and taking actions that we're not guaranteed or 100% sure about. Sometimes we just have to own that choice and take that risk, and see, let the chips fall where they may, So this week we might find ourselves being pushed out of our comfort zone, but it is the assignment of the week to definitely stretch yourself outside of that comfort zone, and don't bemoan the box that you feel that you might be in right now, because this is maybe the pressure that is going to bring about your ultimate evolution. That is all for tonight, y'all. We will be back tomorrow for our weekly manifestation oracle message. Until then, peace be with you. Ciao.